2, 1. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to session 11 of the Metro Budget 101 series. This is our final session entitled The Budget Process and Participatory Budgeting. We have a very esteemed panel with us this evening. We have Mr. Mike Jamison, who's a senior advisor in the mayor's office, along with Mr. Eric Brown and Mr. Fabian Betney, who are also in the mayor's office. We also have Council Member Amir Faroqi from Atlanta, as well as our very own Councilwoman Zofat Swara, who will be talking to us today about participatory budgeting. But we are going to kick it off and get into the logistics of the budget process with Mr. Jamison.
Thank you so much, Councilor. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. Well, thanks for allowing me to be a part of this. The sort of logistical process begins with the question of when does the budget season officially begin. Officially, that would be May 1st when the charter requires the budget to be filed with the clerk and then formally submitted to the Metro Council. But unofficially, it begins really months before that when the Finance Department begins its outreach to each department for their funding needs. Next question is, when do departments submit their budget requests and to whom? A quick aside here, anybody that's ever combed through the entirety of the charter knows that it's showing its age. It's 3 weeks older than I am, and I am certainly showing my age of 57 years. And it was written and has deadlines in the budget process that were totally adequate for the budget of that time. The first formal budget later in 1963-64, I'm told, was stapled together, was about 5 pages. Now you've seen it's a 500-page document, and it's a $2 billion enterprise, and it's hard to do all the things within the same timeline that they had in 1963. But in terms of when departments submit their requests, the charter says it's the Finance Department that distributes particular forms to each department, and they're supposed to do that at least by March 1st and then collect those by the end of April. That worked in 1963. It can't work now. And so in practice, what you'll see is the Finance Department throughout the year does essentially check-ins with each department and gets a sense of what their needs are and what they're thinking they will need in the upcoming fiscal year. And they start that around November, December. It differs every term. And then the more formal requests are made to the departments around the first of the year in January, with a request that the departments get in what they're going to need, usually around early February. The requests, the next question is, do those requests go to the mayor? No. They're collected by the Finance Department, by the charter. The mayor has access to them, and finance directors and mayors have different ways of going about it, and the mayor can check in on an ongoing basis throughout the year and see how individual departments are going. This past year, with the financial roller coaster we were on, there was a lot of frequent check-in with the Finance Department on how particular departments were doing. Next question is, are the mayor's discussions with the departments public? Historically, yes, and traditionally, yes, and historically televised. Last year's pandemic ended that practice for obvious reasons. We couldn't all gather in the same room. And that has led to some, I think, soul searching and consideration of what works best. You'll hear from several people historically that have said that process really doesn't do much to educate anybody. A 15-minute session with Public Works really isn't going to help, and that the whole process became somewhat tedious. It reminds me of, citizens are often curious as to why you don't typically see cameras in the courtroom. The Supreme Court, for example, doesn't allow cameras in the courtroom. And the courtrooms that have tried have noticed that when you do that, then the lawyers start giving speeches and performing. If you turn the cameras off, then they get to the heart of the matter and the meat of the matter. And when you televise departments on their budget proposals, it just comes across as scripted and perhaps not very informative. So I think there's a lot of expansive thinking going on right now with our own budget chair and department heads and the mayor's office about ways to improve that and get to the heart of it. Next number question was, how does the mayor prepare his budget? I've got to confess on this one, he's only done one, and that was during a pandemic, so I can't really say I've seen a pattern. From previous mayors, what I would anticipate is, number one, they'll certainly rely on the process we've been talking about, the outreach by the finance department to the departments, the check-in with the finance department, public outreach, council feedback is huge. They'll also go through very frequently typical exercises each budget year. Ask the departments to prepare a budget with, say, a 2% budget reduction. Let's see how that would look. But at the end of the day, it's the finance department that eventually crunches the numbers and submits the initial proposal to the mayor's office for review. Next question, what does the charter say about the budget process? Article 6 is your friend. It's in 15 nice, concise sections in the charter. You can get through it really in less than 30 minutes, and it lays out everything from how we define the fiscal year, how we prepare the annual budget, the scope of that budget, the review of it and revisions first by the mayor, and then the submission to the council, hearings by the council, actions by the council on the budget, property tax levies. It's all laid out again in Article 6 of the charter. Next question, when is the mayor's budget due to the council? May 1st. And you'll typically get it a few days before that, depending on the calendar that year. But that's what the charter requires and cannot be submitted later than that. Charter also requires that the mayor make sure that every council member gets a copy of the budget prepared and distributed to them. The budget is usually, again, last year being a little unusual, but it's usually presented to the council by the finance director, typically after the State of Metro address, and typically submitted with sort of an explanation of here's the budget, here's its important features and highlights, here's some financial policies we'll be following or proposed for the next year. And if there are any significant changes in the budget, then that's the chance for the finance director to explain them. What I really missed last year is that the State of Metro and then the following immediate presentation of the budget by the finance director, that's as close as Metro gets to sort of pomp and circumstance for each year. The State of Metro is typically given in a significant public space. Often it's the opportunity for a mayor to unveil or show off a new space that might have just been built, and that's been done everywhere from the downtown library to the Music City Center to the Ascend Amphitheater. And then there's a nice march from there to the courthouse and presentation of the budget. Couldn't do that last year, but hoping for better times this year. There have been some charter changes on what is presented along with the budget, and it's mostly about performance measures and debt. Very good charter changes led by the previous council term. But essentially, when you present the budget, you'll also have some sort of performance metric for each department. And that can vary, certainly does vary for each department. How do you determine a successful year for that department? How do we measure that, and how did they do? But also debt, the amount of debt that's in the proposed budget, how that amount compared to last year's amount, what that debt is per person in the city. And so a lot of good debt measurements that come with it. Question 8, can the council
Mr. Jameson, I believe you've muted. Mr. Jameson?
I think we lost him.
he is still talking. He may not realize that we cannot hear him. So what we will do is we'll go ahead and move on to our next panelist, and we will come back for question 8 for Mr. Jamison. So we apologize about that technical difficulty, everyone. So let's go ahead and get into our participatory budgeting pilot. Now, the mayor's proposed capital spending plan includes $2 million for a pilot participatory budgeting process for North Nashville. So this question is directed to Eric Brown and Fabian Bettenay. What is the $2 million in the capital spending? Why is the $2 million in the capital spending plan and not in the operational budget? So if you all could address that, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Council Member, and appreciate the chair and the council staff for giving us this opportunity to talk about participatory budgeting. So the mayor has put together a capital spending plan that includes a lot of investments for North Nashville, but he also wanted to create another layer of opportunity for addressing infrastructure needs in North Nashville that may have been new or old issues that were not captured by this CSP. So he proposed this participatory budgeting as a way to engage with the community and address some of those needs with the help of the local residents. The local residents are the ones that are going to make the decisions of how this money is going to be spent. Now, investments on infrastructure are funded with the CSP, while services are funded with the operating budget, and this is infrastructure needs, so it's coming out of the capital spending plan.
Thank you so very much, former Councilmember Bettenay. And we know that you're in the preliminary stages of creating the process for the pilot, but as you're thinking about how the process will go forward, what type of projects would be eligible for funding, and how do you plan on getting community input?
Thank you, Councilwoman Porterfield. If you don't mind, I'd like to just go ahead and kind of just talk about what a participatory budget process would look like. And then what I'll do from there is I'll go and answer those questions that come right from beyond from there. So usually within a participatory budgeting process, at least the way that we're thinking about doing it is that you start off with a steering committee. These will be people that are stakeholders within the community, to really just give a frame of how this participatory process will go. The biggest thing that we are making sure that people do understand about this is that this is for the residents, that we want to make sure that there is accessibility, that people feel that they are part of the process, and that it is them, the residents themselves, who are asking for this portion of money to say directly where it goes. That does come with a few caveats as far as making sure that the project is around need, making sure that the project is around impact for the community, and then also the feasibility of that. So if we started the process itself, it would be what we call ideal collection. There's a few ways that people do it in Cambridge. They use an online process with an online map where people can literally pinpoint on the map a particular problem that is going on within their community. From there, they can give an idea of this is the problem, this is a way that can possibly solve it. And then other people within the community can actually look at this map and see what other people are saying, and they can either second or third that particular project, or they might come up with another one. One thing, again, with talking about online is that we want to make sure that it is accessible. For some people, we do understand that using online may not be accessible for them. So we are talking about using the Nashville Hub as well, where people can either do phone calls or emails to really discuss and talk about those projects. But again, that's the first phase of the participatory budget, is the idea collection. Then from there, those ideas will be taken by usually a budget committee that will look at all these different ideas and see which ones are really becoming more common themes. And then that will go into what is called a proposal development. In the proposal development, these ideas that are being worked on, regardless if they're in public works, planning, even possibly parks, they will work with these different departments to really try to frame and face how this project can look, and they'll deal with how much it will cost, what that project would particularly look like, and shape that, put it into a plan so that we can bring it back into the community. From there, with the proposal developments, you usually have a few, not just one or two, that come from different areas to really show these different places of where this proposal would be, and then it would be taken to where there would be a vote. The vote would be pretty simple, almost in the same way of it can either be online, it can be done through the hub system as well. The only thing that we had asked is that to make sure with the requirements that it would be people who are residents within the community are the only ones that can vote. The people that are being affected the most within their communities are the only ones that vote. And what I love about this part, at least, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be only those who are of voting age that can be a part of this process. We can also use youth. In Cambridge, there for the voting process, they have some of their residents as young as 12 years old who are a part of the process. Also, you don't necessarily have to be an American citizen, but just a resident of the community within this process. And so voting for those who are residents within the area is really a big part of the process within that. And then the last piece of that would be the after it's been voted on, the evaluation and the monitoring to really talk about how we can make sure that this plan is feasible, impactful, and also does solve the needs of that. And for most places, that usually can be anywhere from a 9 to a 12-month process. To go back to the question, though, what type of projects would be eligible for funding? But be very simple ones. It could be as simple as maybe a pocket park within the area. In other areas, they've used it to either create a bike shop for the area, or it can be things around sustainability, where trees are put up in a particular neighborhood, greenways, walkways, or different ways that this can also be used. Another question I believe that comes up is how do you plan to get community input? Within the steering committee, what we're also hoping is that, well, not hoping, we will be reaching out to different community organizations to be able to be a part of this process. Again, the biggest piece of this is that we, as the mayor's office or those who are in city, work for the city, are not the ones who propose these projects. It is the residents themselves that do a part of this process. And so we want to make sure that we have all the input possible for this. And so we'll make sure that they hit different neighborhood associations. Neighborhood associations will also be working with, but we want to make sure that those, again, who are residents of the community are a part of this process. Will the community get to vote on these projects? Yes, the answer is yes to that answer. How will they vote? Again, it will be either through the Hub Nashville, where they can either call in, emails, online process. I think we're even going to make sure to have other various ways of doing it, just to make sure that we get it. Of course, the pandemic itself has kind of made us have to think in more creative ways how to do this. But again, we want to make sure that the number one thing that we remember about this is accessibility. Will the Bordeaux community also be included? The answer for that is yes. There is a map that will go out soon that will show what we are talking about within this area. For that, the areas that will be a part of this process will be portions of District 1, portions of District 2, portions of District 3, portions of District 19, and portions of District 21. This will be those who are eligible to be a part of this process. So, of course, yes, that does include the Bordeaux community. What stakeholders will be involved in creating this process? Again, we want to make sure that we have the residents. Of course, council members will be a part of this process. The mayor's office will only be there just to make sure that we facilitate this process. We will have no hands-on a part of this to influence this, because again, we are about the accessibility, people knowing that we are being transparent and that they are a part of this process within that. If there's three things that I would also like to leave within this is that, of course, with $2 million, that may for some people seem small, but what we have to realize is that we want to start small so that we can scale up. And so this will be the first time that Nashville is doing this, particularly within the North Nashville and the Bordeaux area. with the money. And so we want to start small to really make sure that we have a good hold of how we are doing this process. And then hopefully seeing what this pilot project look like, it'll help us to scale up a little bit more and even expand out within this process. The other thing, again, is that we are being inclusive in this process. So it's not just about voting age. We want to make sure that youth are a part of this. I think we have been in talks about those who are in high school will be able to be a part of this process. Again, like I said, in Cambridge, it's been 12 years old for those, because again, youth are a strong part. We really do believe in youth. We want them to be a part of the government process of how things are working. And this is a great example to see youth shine with being a part of this process. And then the last piece that I want to also make sure is that it's really process over the money. And more of what I mean by that is that we want to make sure that we are running a very clean process within this piece. We want people to know that this is back into the people's hands of how they're able to use this, how they are able to see their communities, however they understand the context and the histories of those communities and the neighbors that they have, and that they work together to be able to form this right so that the money goes in the right places for their community.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Appreciate that insight into the pilot program. And before we get into talking to Councilmember Faroki, who's doing participatory budgeting in Atlanta, we want to go back to Mr. Jameson, who looked like he was giving us so much good information and we just couldn't hear it.
Yeah, I all the finance problems in those last three questions. I'm so sorry. I'm a klutz with my fingers, I think. But I had three last questions, so I'll talk fast in case I screw up my buttons again. But the last question that I had just started was, can the council change the finance director's revenue forecast? That's one of the few areas where the charter just bluntly says no. It does not allow the council to alter the, as it puts it, to alter the estimates of receipts or other fund availability that the finance director provides. And the reason for that, of course, is not that a council would ever do this, but theoretically, otherwise, a council member could say, well, I think we're going to get $1 million more in revenue, and I want to spend it on whatever. So because we have to have a budgeted, balanced budget, we can't do that. Question number 9, what changes can the council make to the mayor's proposed budget? Just one quick little story here. I was on my first year on the council in 2003 and had just gotten through the first set of hearings of the budget, and one of the at-large members took me aside and said, typically the council effectuates change around the 2% realm for each budget. And I thought, oh my God, we go through all of those hearings and all of this paperwork and agony, and we're making a 2% change. And I kind of moped around about that. The finance director at the time, guy David Manning, took me aside and said, well, what you got to remember is that 90% of the budget is fixed costs. And so there are some items that we have to make sure are in each year's budget. We have to pay all of the debt service requirements, all the expenditures that we've incurred, all of the state law obligations. We have to pay the pension for all of our employees and retirees, OPEB. All of that amounts to about 90% of the available funding. So it gets down to the final percentages. So you are actually making a pretty significant change where change can be made each year. Otherwise, in terms of what can be changed, just keep in mind our budget has to be balanced. And because the council can't declare there to be more revenue, you can't increase the overall budget. If you submit something that increases a cost, then you also have to identify the offsetting decrease somewhere else in the budget. That's where it gets tough. It's easy to propose an increase anywhere, but then when you've got to identify where it's coming from, that's the hard part. Then that brings you to the entire substitute process. Let me come back to that as my final comment and sort of a plea to this council. The last question is, what's the process once the council has received the mayor's proposed budget? Well, the council holds hearings after their first reading of the budget. It's an ordinance. It's a 3-reading budget. Council, typically, it has the option, it doesn't have to, but it typically calls in the department heads and goes through each department head's budget. What you'll notice is that in the usual scheduling of those departments that have the largest capital needs, they come in the second week of those scheduled hearings. And the reason you do that is that you also want to get the capital improvements budget filed. And then if you were to, for example, call in Public Works the first week before the CIB is filed, you wouldn't really have half of what you'd want to ask them about. As council members go through the department hearings, this is not set about by any rule at all, but what you've seen typically is they start recording wish lists submitted in writing. You know, this department needs X, Y, Z, and I propose that it come from this other source. Again, the council has to specify the source for any increase. You'll also get typically filed with the budget any fee schedules that are changing and any pay plans, because you're going to want to know what your new revenues and expenses are going to be when you're funding the entire operation. Those three readings, typically the first one is in early to mid-May, the second one is late May to early June, and that's the public hearing, and then the third one mid to late June. You just have to have it all done by June 30th, or else the mayor's goes into effect automatically. I'll close by making one plea with respect to substitutes, and where I think we have gone a little off the rails in the last couple of years. As you look at the charter and you look at the council rules, it is clear, and it has been traditional, that the mayor proposes his budget and then the council as a whole comes together with its substitute. That is the choice between those two. Where we've gotten off the rails, in my humble opinion, is this notion of having not one council substitute, but 2 and 3 and 4 and even 5 substitutes. That is unsustainable on the part of the finance department. They just do not have the personnel and the wherewithal to prepare 2, 3, 4, 5 substitutes. And it's I think you'll hear a lot of people beg and plead like me, come together as a council and have your council substitute. And 99.9% of the time, that's what actually passes. So it's the council's control. But do it with one and not 3, 4, 5 of them. That's just me asking, suggesting, but we appreciate the time. And thank you, Councilmember Toombs, for having me.
Mr. Jamison, if you were talking, we weren't able to hear you. No, I'm joking. We heard you that time. So thank you. Thank you so very much. We do have a follow-up question for you and then a follow-up question for former Councilman Bettany and Mr. Brown, but we will save those to the end. We're really excited to have a council member from Atlanta, Georgia, joining us today. And council member, again, thank you for taking the time out. We really wanted to touch base with someone who is in the participatory budgeting process and just hear about how it's working in their city. So if you could describe how the process works in your city and how you conduct your community outreach, we would really appreciate hearing about it.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Porterfield and Councilmember Toombs. I didn't realize Councilmember Porterfield brought the jokes tonight, so I appreciate the levity. We could hear you just fine, Mr. Jamison. But it's good to be with all of you all. I hope you're doing great in Nashville. Greetings from Atlanta, and thank you for inviting me. Happy to, first, congratulations on launching a participatory budgeting program. Very exciting. You're further along than we have. I'll tell you a little bit about what we've done in Atlanta and how we ran it and some lessons learned, if that's okay. We, about 2 years ago, 2 budget cycles ago, I proposed to a similar program to y'all, $2 million, $2 to $3 million in a participatory budgeting program. I found very little traction with my colleagues. We have a much smaller council than y'all have. We have about 15 members. I noticed y'all have 40 plus. So maybe it's, I don't know what's easier, but either way, I didn't have the support of my colleagues interested. I think there was curiosity around participatory budgeting. And the mayor also, I think, was a little bit not initially warm to the idea, though curious about it. So we got a $600,000 pilot through in a budget cycle, but I argue that money would be best spent in one small part of town because $600,000 doesn't go very far. But inevitably politics won out, so it got divided amongst 12 council districts, so it really didn't go very far. And so with my $40,000, I'm running a small one in a park, so kind of a park-focused participatory budgeting program. But the bigger program I ran that got some press and probably is how you found me is I had about $1 million in leftover T-SPOS, so transportation dollars that had been dedicated to one part of my district, which was the center city, downtown. And I could have decided how to spend those dollars, but I said, let's run a participatory budgeting program just for the portion of downtown where these dollars were targeted for. And it had to be related to transportation issues. So you couldn't propose a new playground in the park. You couldn't propose something outside the city's jurisdiction that would say our transit system is separate from our city government. So you couldn't ask the transit system to put a new bus stop in. And so we ran it for 6-7 months. And we started it before the pandemic kicked in, and we finished it a few months into the pandemic. But it worked great, and it blew our expectations away. And the way we ran it was, and I'll be very as efficient as possible, we ran it over 6-7 months. The first month and a half, we went out to the public and said, propose ideas. And we did our best to cast a wide net as possible, because if you just leave it to the neighborhood associations or the regular groups you go to, you're going to have the same couple hundred folks who show up to all those meetings propose ideas. So we set up shop outside of a few transit stations. We set up shop in cafeterias, in big high rises. We went to classes at Georgia State University, which is right downtown in the middle of where we were proposing this work be done. We promoted it heavily on social media. And after about a month and a half, folks had proposed, I believe it was 117 ideas. And some of them were big and crazy. Some of them were small and seemingly insignificant, but important to people. And then after that idea collection period, we spent a month and a half with the Department of Transport, our city Department of Transportation, going through the list and saying, okay, which of these are legal, right? Which is this within the city's purview? Which is in the geographic footprint in which we focused this project? And we said, once we got through all that, we vetted the ones that were legal, not legal, fit in within the criteria or not, much like you guys are going to do. And then we said, okay, what's of the projects that are left that fit the scope of the program? How much is it going to cost to implement? Because the way we did voting ultimately, when we went back to the public, was we did what we call shopping cart voting. So we had a website. Everyone logged on who wanted to vote, and I'll talk about who we allowed to vote in a second. But everyone got $1 million, and you could see all the projects. They had descriptions. Some of them had photos. They had a little dot on the map. And you had to make the same hard decisions that government has to make. You had $1 million, but the projects exceeded $1 million. And so people kind of went through the projects and picked the ones they like. And what we found is what you might expect is there are always some big ticket items that people really like. So there may have been a $250,000 sidewalk extension or a new bike lane. But then there was some small projects. Like one of my favorites was there was a small island, a concrete island separating a bike lane from a traffic lane. And people complained they couldn't see it. So someone just proposed painting it yellow, which is like, $1,000 project. And so at the end, as you kind of go through the shopping cart experience across all the voters, you can see which projects most folks like. It's a pretty equitable way to say which projects rise to the top of people's priority list. And the smaller projects also get put through, because what happens is, just like if you have a budget and go to the grocery store, you're going to spend money on some big projects. You get to the end, you got an extra $10,000 or $20,000, and so you say, oh, what can I pick? Oh, there's this cool more trash cans for this street, right? And that's only a $5,000 project. So you got a really good balance of big projects and small projects that got through. One of the things we also tried to do was, initially we were going to have in-person voting and online voting. The pandemic hit, so we had all the voting online, which I was a little bit anxious about, but we had remarkable turnout. This is a part of town where not many people live. It's kind of where people go to school, businesses come in. There is a small residential component to it. But we said, if you live downtown, work downtown, you're a tourist and you come through downtown, you can vote. So we were very liberal about it. Some cities like to say you have to show you're a resident, you have to show you live in this neighborhood. We were pretty laissez-faire about it. And we had, over a course of a 1-month voting period, so we kept voting open for a month, we had over 3,600 people vote, which kind of blew us away. And we ensured that people didn't vote twice as best we could, but we had a two-factor authentication thing, so that you would sign in, you had to put your cell phone number. We didn't keep it, and then you were sent a text to that cell phone number with a code that you would then put in. And so if someone really wanted to vote twice, they would have to go get a second cell phone, and because we wouldn't allow that same number to register. There's lots of different ways to do it. I actually looked at programs in Europe and all over the US, and there's 100 different ways to do this. But we said the more people that vote, the better, and the wider net we can cast, the more equitable the outcomes. A couple quick takeaways, and I'll stop if you have any questions, Councilmember, I think you you want to do everything you can to keep people excited about it. Some people come at it from a social justice, power to the people angle. Great. I found here what most effective was you get to decide how your tax dollars are spent. And we kept pushing that out. You have control. The city doesn't have control over this, which we could talk about in a second. Is kind of how to get the bureaucrats on board with participatory budgeting. But over the course of those 6-7 months, people really liked it, and they were really happy with the outcomes. Occasionally, someone would have a crazy idea that fit the criteria, so we kept it on the ballot. But what you found pretty quickly is you trust people, and the outcomes are pretty good. If someone had proposed, we want to have a tuba player on every corner, and they had a big campaign, and nonprofit put a bunch of money into it, and they really knocked on doors to get people to vote for it. If it's a crazy idea and enough people vote, it's not going to get through. The good ideas tend to get through. And so I would trust the process. You're going to have good outcomes. I'll close with a few quick takeaways. I wrote down cast a big net and trying to get as many people to participate as possible, both in the idea generation and the voting. So seniors, immigrants, kids, students, renters, people who don't normally come to neighborhood meetings. Get the city departments on board. Here, your mayor is championing it, so they should be in good shape. One of the challenges I was worried about was I didn't want our DOT to kind of keep these projects at arm's length. Even when they got voted through, I wanted to make sure they were implemented, because the worst thing that this can happen is you go through this whole process, people get excited, projects win, and then your city department's like, back of the line, you'll see these projects in 3 years. And then people are going to lose trust in government. And that's a big reason you do this, is to build trust in government, build civic participation. And I think you want to make sure that these projects are implemented. We're trying to get them implemented within a year to the extent they can. Some of them will take 18 months, but that proof of people saying, that's my project, and it took flight, has been really neat. And we've had little events around them. We've invited the people out to propose their projects, to kind of cut a ribbon around them. So make it celebratory, gets people excited. And then I think for some people who are skeptics, I always make clear it doesn't require any extra money in your budget. You're just taking existing general fund dollars that may have been under the control of your transportation department or your parks department, and you're taking the control away from the department and giving it to residents, which can create some tension. But if folks are on board and they're excited about the experiment, it's going to go great. So congrats on launching a program. Really excited to watch it from afar, and happy to be a resource any way I can, and happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Council Member. We will save any additional questions for the end, but we do have one more question for you before we move on. And again, thank you so much for joining us. So we actually found you through, I had the opportunity to speak with Mayor Pro Tem Jillian Johnson in Durham, North Carolina. So she's a fellow local progress member, and I spoke with her about I know she's involved with participatory budgeting. We have one of our senior council members, Councilmember Kobe Sledge, has previously been an advocate of participatory budgeting. Most recently, one of my colleagues who's on the call with us today, Councilmember Zilphat Saror, she ran her campaign around participatory budgeting. So she, had a really big push forward. So we're thankful that we had a lot of advocates here, and then we're thankful that the mayor's office was able to allocate for this pilot. So it's just been wonderful hearing about how this is working in Atlanta. I will add that we did a little bit similar to the project that you all did with the dollar amounts. Our department, our person that is now over transportation, forgive me, former Councilman Bettany, I probably messed up the name of that department. I'm sure that's not the name of the department, but we did community outreach throughout our city, and everyone had a certain amount of money. I think it was maybe 100 fake dollars, and they had to spend their money on, do you want sidewalks, or what are the traffic improvements? So we did an unofficial version to see, how people wanted to spend money to improve the transportation in our city. So it's good to hear that, not quite the same thing, but it's, that we're kind of aligned in that thinking of how we're showing people how to spend. We have a finite amount of money. What would you like to spend on those projects? So before we move on to our next panelist, what do you think your city could do better? As you've learned from this process and you shared some really great tips with us, is there anything that you think that your city could have done better that may be a good warning for us as we're entering into the process?
So ours went really smoothly. I think that's because we took a lot of time looking at programs around the world and around the country, and we spent a lot of time thinking about how to get as many folks involved as possible, which I know I mentioned before, but I would continue to impress that upon you. The more people that participate at every stage, the better the outcomes are going to be, the more people trust the process. And one of the bigger outcomes that I enjoyed was just seeing the community and civic engagement, because if you propose a project and you want to see it happen, you're going to go tell your neighbor and tell your friends to participate. And so it creates connections between people in the city that otherwise wouldn't have existed. I mean, I guess my one piece of advice would be, and we did this well, but we could have done it better, is over-communicate. Communicate as much as possible. The more transparent you are through the process, the more people will believe that this is a real thing and it's not some gimmick that you're putting out there, right? So, you know, communicate about why this is happening and how to engage with the process and how to submit your ideas. And once the ideas are submitted, tell people how many ideas were submitted and tell them what the next month or two is going to look like as the city determine what's going to be on the ballot. And then, so as you go through all the process, over communicate. And then when it's done, I would recommend, we've done this well, we can do it as quickly as I would have liked to, is to have a website or some place where people can go to see the winning projects, which ones lost, what the vote tally was, make it as transparent as possible, and when implementation is expected. And then as the projects come online and are built out, you know, hold events around them to let people know that these are happening.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful. And I'm going to want to kick it over to Councilmember Toombs.
Thank you, Councilmember. And we're going to move on to Councilwoman at Large Zofat Swara. And Councilwoman Swara has a video that she would like to start with. Then we'll dive into questions with her.
Thank you, Budget Chair and Vice Chair. Thanks for having me. Now, this is my first time sharing on Webex, so you'll have to be patient with me. I don't know if I have access yet. It's not letting me share. It's blanked out. Oh, there's share. Okay. There we go. Okay. Found it. All right. Let's see.
The quality of the video might not be as good, so just want to let you know.
Is there supposed to be sound? And I think it may be fast forwarding.
All right, let's so you're not getting the audio?
No.
No, you'll have to drive it in, so.
Okay, let me try that again, and if that does not work, then we'll just send people the link and they can look at it. Can you still see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Can you hear it?
No, you cannot.
Okay, all right.
Councilmember Swara, is your tab muted? It looked like the tab may have been muted at the very top. It looked like it could have potentially been an X over the speaker.
All right.
Could you possibly email that link to Sherrod King with IT, and maybe we could play it after you're done speaking, if Sherrod could get it to play?
That would be good. Can you still hear me?
We can, Councilmember.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for having me. I will go ahead and send it to Sherrod if we can still show it. But I wanted to put the video of what everybody's been talking about, just to actually see how this is practiced and what are the benefits, and to actually see how people feel about participatory budgeting. And so that's what the video basically will show about people that have actually done it and what is their feeling towards it. I think sometimes you cannot communicate the people's feeling enough. So, one of the questions that you asked me is I ran on participatory budgeting, and how has my visions changed as a candidate versus being a council member? In terms of vision and how I see it playing out, it really has not changed that much. I still believe it's something that we should do and we can do. The only thing, though, that you come to find out is that as a council member, your expectation is limited because now you have to face reality. You have 70 people that you have to sell the idea to, 40 people that you have to sell the idea to. I'm now making our council bigger than it was. So selling the idea to everyone and making sure that everyone is on board. The other limitation was funding. When we came in a year right after we were elected, we got into all this budget thing. And without money, I couldn't talk to anyone about participatory budgeting because we were still trying to figure out money to spend on basic services. And so having a laudable idea, thinking I'm just going to go there on the very first day and make all these changes, and then you get there and then reality hits you. Like, okay, I guess we need money for other things before we can start telling people what else we need to do. So all of that was an eye-opener. The other thing that I also found out in the last year or so is that there's some misconceptions about what participatory budgeting is. And so while I'm trying to talk to people about why we need to do what we need to do, you find out that people keep telling you, we're doing this already. One example that was given was a number of years ago, the council gave some money to council members. Each council member had a certain amount to spend in their district. And so some people think that was participatory budgeting. Well, it's not. Another one that people have told me when I try to talk to them is, well, we do go into the communities. The budget chair and vice chair go into the communities, talk to people about the budget, and people have their voices heard. And this is participatory budgeting. Well, that's not either. The last one that people told me as I was trying to sell this idea and get support is that someone told me on our website, there is a program where you can actually go in and play with the dollars. It's like a wish list of, if I have X amount of money, what would I want to spend it on? All of those are good. But the hallmark of participatory budgeting at the end of the day is not just so that people just voice their opinion, is that those opinions are implemented. That the spending of the dollar at the end of the day was decided by the people. And so those are the only things that I ran into. But in terms of how to see it work, what I want us to do, it hasn't changed. And I'm so grateful that we're finally here. I'm actually very excited. When I saw that 2 million, I got a whole lot of calls from so many people. And I'm grateful to the mayor's office, former Councilmember Bedney, and everybody that worked on it to get us this far.
So we've heard from Councilmember Faroki from Atlanta, and I know you've done your own research on participatory budgeting. What are some of the ideas that you've gotten from looking at other processes, and what are some pitfalls that you would like to avoid in Nashville?
I think that the ideas at the end of the day, as long as we're mindful that the ideas has to come from the people. And so looking at ideas elsewhere will be against participatory budgeting because now we're controlling what we think should happen. And so what the people in New York and Boston and the places that I've looked at said they like may not be what our people want. And so the hallmark of participatory budgeting is letting the people decide. And so we need to make sure that we have that community engagement, and we need to make sure that we're not driving what we think we want them to do, but to make sure that it actually comes from the people. In terms of pitfalls, the biggest pitfalls with participatory budgeting is the fact that if it is not well communicated, if it is not well thought out, it might actually lead to inequity. And so you have a situation where it is only the people that heard about it that are able to participate in it. The mayor has an idea of so many districts to be in this pilot, But what we don't want is a situation where all the ideas are all coming from one district, but there's another district that had better need or more need, but they could not participate because the people did not know or they did not have the access to internet or means to participate. So we have to be very careful that as we plan this out, that we're making sure that we're looking at, okay, how do we make sure that there's enough communication? And like Councilman Faruqi said, how do we make sure that we have a large participation? And that way it's fair to everyone in the neighborhood and that everybody heard about it and everybody had the opportunity to pitch their ideas.
So how do you see participatory budgeting going in Nashville moving forward? Because we're starting with this pilot program, and you've heard Mr. Brown stated that, you want to start small so that you can scale up. So thinking about scaling up and how this looks in the future, what's your vision for participatory budgeting?
That's a good one. I hope that we can continue it, because one of the things about participatory budgeting is that the government has to be committed to it, right? It's not something that we do 1 year and then we don't do another year. So I like the idea, honestly, that we're focusing on North Nashville this time, because it actually makes it a lot easier to manage. And then hopefully the next time we go to another part of the city, and then another time we go to the next part of the city. I hope that is something that is continuous, that is not just a one-time thing, and that we get the opportunity to actually do it in different part of the city. And then I think once we're able to do that, I would also like the opportunity for us to be able to expand it if possible. So this is the capital funding. When I was talking to finance and our council director, legal director, Mr. Cooper, about my idea, it was actually from the operating budgeting side. I was looking at, do we have any discretionary funding that we could use, ask the people how to use those discretionary funding, and basically have it in a way that it's in the budget, but maybe it's part of either the discretionary budget or part of works budget or another budget that we can actually use. I like the capital spending part of it, but we can also find some other ways to do it. So for me, it's just the idea of making it continuous. Participatory budget is something that we need. If you see the look on the people's face, we need, what I saw during the campaign is the lack of trust in government. And I think that it's very important for people to feel like their voices are heard. The other thing that I think is also important, which is one of the reasons why I ran on it, is that it also makes government efficient. Oftentimes, we think we know what the people want. And we do to some extent. We have our community meetings and all of that. But I think having the people tell us is a way to make sure that we're putting our dollars to match the issues that are important to the people that we serve.
Excellent points, Councilmember Soren. Thank you so very much. We are going to go into our Q&A session, and Councilmember Housen, we do see your hand raised, and we will recognize you in just one moment. Just two more questions, and then we'll kick into our Q&A. The first question is for Mr. Jameson. Now, I know that you used to be a council member, then you were the director, and now you're over with the mayor's office. So you've been around for a while in Metro government, even though you're just, 18 years old, right? You're such a young guy, but you've been around Metro government for a while now. So what is the biggest change that you've seen in the budgeting process? Like what do you see happening now that maybe you didn't see happening over the last few decades in Metro government?
It's been incremental, but it's been very determined. The council has more and more required greater disclosure and transparency in the budgeting process. So, and I'll use one timely example as the capital spending plan. So the capital spending plan, it's our initial bond resolution to actually issue bonds to start spending money on capital improvement item listed projects. And so the first two pages is a typical resolution, and it says this is issuing a bond on the projects listed in Exhibit A. And then Exhibit A lists the projects, but that list, I'm not kidding, it used to say things like roads, $10 million. And that was it. That was as much disclosure as you got. So the council was asking for, we need to know which roads. And so you've got Rule 21 that says, when you file that, we need to see the projects listed by the CIB number, how they fared on the prioritization scale if you're doing that. So I think it's just been a more and more gradually but determined process towards greater disclosure so that everybody sees what's going on at the same time.
I think that is so. Thank you for pointing it out, and I think that's such a great thing because I think as Councilmember Sorora and Councilmember Faroki mentioned, there's not always like a trust in government. So I think that greater level of transparency does allow people to see where their dollars are going. So thank you for sharing that. And the next question is for former Councilman Bedney and Mr. Eric Brown. Could you speak a little bit about how this pilot came about? And one of Councilmember Sorora's concerns was making sure that this is long-term. So is this something that, at least under our current administration, is this something that we think will be a long-term process? And do we think we'll see this in our budgeting process for the duration of the mayor's term?
I can take that if Mr. Brown doesn't mind. Thank you for the question, Councilmember Porterfield. I think the mayor is very interested in building a city for all. He is interested in equity. And a PB pilot is one way to address infrastructure, the needs of the community, and engage with the community in a way that allows every person that wants to participate to do so. I learned about PB when I met Councilmember Menchaca, who was going to be one of the speakers here today. He came to the White House to a conference and explained to us how they were doing in New York. And I just fell in love with it. And I was so happy when on the campaign trail, I discovered that Councilmember Suara. Back then we were both campaigning, but we were both very passionate about it. So it is something that has been happening in the city, but it has a lot to do with the need to have more equity. And this is the perfect tool for equity. It's very surgical. You are actually empowering residents to find, like the council member from Atlanta was indicating, things that you wouldn't even think about that are important to the people that deal with this every day. I live off Antioch. I don't know exactly what happens in North Nashville, but the North Nashville residents are the ones that know the best, what are those needs and how to address it and prioritize it. So we feel very strongly at the mayor's office that this is a tool that will help do that. And also to know if this is going to be long-term, first we have to do like the council member for Atlanta said, first we need to do this pilot and learn a lot from it, from the experience. What really matters is each city needs to find their own way of doing PB because it's core to the concept of PB that each city makes up their own rules on how to do it. And so the first steps that we're going to engage here is engage with the North Nashville residents and get them to tell us what those rules should be. That way we can do it in a way that they own it. And so I'm sure it's going to be PB, but it's going to be different than the PB in Atlanta or the PB in New York or the PB in Vallejos, because it is going to be a Nashville solution to a Nashville need. And I hope that after we are done with it, that is going to expand and grow, like Councilmember Suara was saying. But we got to take it a step at a time. And I'm very happy and excited that the mayor believes in equity and this tool to deliver it.
Thank you, Mr. Bettany. I want to recognize the council members that have questions. Councilwoman Hauser, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I missed the first few minutes. I was on another call, so you may have addressed this, and I apologize if you have. And it's how will we determine the amount that would be in the participatory budget, and who will be determining what projects the residents will be voting on?
Former council member Bettany or Mr. Brown, either one of you want to answer that question?
I couldn't hear very well the question, but I think she was asking if who decides the project is viable, right?
Who decides which projects will be funded? And Councilwoman Hauser, help me with the first part of your question. There were two parts.
I wanted to know how we would determine the dollar amount that would be part of the participatory budget. And then two, how do we determine which projects they have a choice of?
So traditionally, in general, the way it's done is people propose, they have to create a narrative describing the project that they want to do. And then it will go to the Metro department that is going to create a scope of work and a budget for it. And then it's going to get back into the system so the residents that qualify, that can vote on that, people that live in that district, in that region, can vote and elevate those items up and down. But before that, this steering committee, this group of people are going to agree on the rules. They're also going to decide what projects are viable. Like projects has to be legal. We cannot use money to pay for something that it will go against the city charter or the U.S. Constitution or the state laws. So there's going to be some vetting process through our legal department, our finance department. And so that's going to narrow down many of the things that are going to be buildable. I think maybe Jameson remembers when it was proposed many years ago that we build a landing site for a UFO in Nashville as part of the capital spending plan. And so I'm sure that wouldn't be permissible. But you know, if somebody wants to paint, like the council member from Atlanta was saying, wants to paint something yellow, I'm sure that will be, that will meet the guidelines of the capital spending plan. So there's going to be a filtering process, but whatever items go through the filtering process, they're going to be up to the residents to decide which ones get more votes or less.
Thank you, Mr. Bettany. Also, Councilwoman Suara, the $2 million for the pilot is in the capital spending plan, which the council will be voting on next week. And Mr. King, did you receive the video from Councilwoman Suara? Are you able to show it?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Can you show it? I think this would be a good point to show the video, and then we can wrap up afterwards.
Not a problem.
So it appears as though the sound is still not working. But if anyone would like to view this wonderful video, you can find it at www.participatorybudgeting.org. As soon as you go to the page, there's a link that says, "What is PB?" And you can watch this video. It's about 4 minutes, and we would just encourage everyone to watch it. As Councilmember Suara said, you can see just the joy and the appreciation of the people in the community, knowing that their tax dollars are going to work for them directly in their communities, and knowing that their voices are heard. So we would just like to encourage everyone to watch that video as your time permits. And I will kick it over to Councilmember Toombs to close this out.
Well, I just want to thank all of the panelists for joining us this evening and sharing your knowledge about the budget process and about participatory budgeting. When we came up with the schedule for this Budget 101 series, this was the final session back in October. and we didn't know whether or not we'd actually have a participatory budgeting process in Nashville, but we still wanted to educate the public and also continue to advocate for having that process. So it's very, very timely and appreciated that the administration has proposed this pilot in the capital spending plan. And thank you for hanging out with us for 11 sessions. We've talked a lot about the budget, and we could talk a lot more, but we're going to stop here. And all of the sessions are recorded. You can go to the Metro Nashville Network's YouTube page and Google or search for Community Budget Education Series, and all 11 sessions will come up. So they're right at your fingertips. Share the videos with your friends so that we can keep the public educated and everybody's ready to have some meaningful conversations once we're going into budget season.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Before you close out, I want to use the opportunity to say that last year I had some community meetings on Facebook during the budget season as well. Once we get the mayor's budget and the numbers, that series will continue as well this year. And the participatory budgeting part of it, following that conversation in the community, will be part of what we'll be looking at as well. So there will be more conversation on the participatory budgeting, as well as looking at the numbers like we did last year once we have the actual budget in front of us. And so what we're trying to do, and I'm grateful to Madam Chair and Vice Chair, is that there cannot be too much communication. Like our council member guest said, the more we put out, the more we talk about it, the more people know, the more we can create a trust in our government. So people should be on the lookout for those as well. So thank you so much.
Madam Chair, you are muted.
I think Mr. Jameson jinxed me. But thank you, Councilwoman Suara. And thank you for continuing to educate the public beyond this series, just as we've done last year. And I encourage everyone to tune in to Councilwoman Suara's Facebook series. It's very informative and was very good last year. And I'm sure it will be just as good this year. So again, thank you and good night.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.